She whispered, "No one wants me." But what he discovered next could destroy a billionaire. Everyone walked away from her. But the one man who stayed uncovered a secret worth millions, a scarred woman in the corner. And the truth behind her silence was more dangerous than anyone knew. He just wanted to help, but he stepped into a war between power, money, and betrayal. The night he refused to leave her was the night his entire life changed forever. On a cold, rainy night in Detroit, Marcus Reed, a single father, just wanted a quiet cup of coffee before heading home to his daughter. But when a woman in the corner whispered, "No one wants me," everything shifted. What he didn't know was that one simple choice to stay would pull him into a secret powerful enough to bring down an empire. Rain slid down the cafe windows in slow, crooked lines, blurring the neon sign outside into a dull red glow. The place smelled like burnt coffee and something sweet that had gone stale hours ago. It wasn't the kind of cafe people came to for comfort. It was the kind you ended up in when you had nowhere else to go. Marcus Reed sat near the back, his large hands wrapped around a paper cup that had long since gone cold. His jacket was still damp from the walk, and a thin layer of dust clung to his boots from the construction site he'd left just an hour earlier. He hadn't planned to stop here, but when the rain started coming down harder, heavy and relentless, this had been the closest shelter. He liked places like this, not because they were good, but because no one expected anything from you. You could sit, exist, and no one would ask questions, until she walked in. The door chimed softly, and a gust of cold air swept through the room. Conversations didn't stop, but they shifted. Marcus felt it without even looking. That subtle change in energy, like when people sensed something out of place. He glanced up. She stood there for just a moment, dripping rain onto the worn tile floor. A white woman, early 30s maybe. Her coat was expensive once, but now it looked like it had been worn too many days in a row. Her hair was pulled back, not neatly, just tightly, as if she needed control over something, anything. She scanned the room like she was bracing for impact. Then she moved, not toward the counter, not toward the middle tables. She walked straight to the corner, half shadow, half light, and sat down with her back against the wall. Marcus watched as the waitress approached her, hesitated, then forced a polite smile. "You want something?" the waitress asked. The woman nodded slightly. "Tea, just tea." Her voice was calm, too calm, like something carefully rehearsed. The waitress scribbled and walked away quickly, like she didn't want to linger. A man at the next table leaned toward his companion, whispered something. They both looked over, then just as quickly looked away. Marcus had seen that look before. He leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing slightly, not staring, just noticing. The tea came. The woman wrapped her hands around the cup, but she didn't drink. She just sat there, staring into the steam like it might tell her something. Minutes passed. Then another man approached her table. Marcus didn't catch everything at first, just the tone. Curious, maybe a little flirtatious. "Mind if I sit?" the man asked, already pulling out the chair. She didn't look up. "You can, but you shouldn't." He chuckled like it was a joke. "That bad, huh?" That's when she moved. Slowly, deliberately, she set the cup down. Her fingers trembled just slightly as she reached for the sleeve of her sweater. Marcus felt something tighten in his chest. She rolled it up. The man's smile faded instantly. Marcus couldn't see everything from where he sat, but he saw enough. The skin on her forearm wasn't smooth. It was uneven, marked by something old, something that had healed but never disappeared. The man leaned back like he'd been burned. "Oh," he muttered. "I didn't." She pulled the sleeve back down before he could finish. "I told you," she said, her voice flat, steady as stone. "You shouldn't sit." He stood up quickly, grabbed his coat. "Yeah, Yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot something. He didn't look at her again as he left. The door chimed. Cold air rushed in. Then silence settled again. But not really, because now everyone had seen, and everyone was pretending they hadn't. Marcus felt the weight of it pressing down on the room, that uncomfortable quiet, that invisible wall people built when they didn't know how to deal with something real. He took a slow breath, crossed the cafe. The woman stared at her tea again, like nothing had happened, like this was normal. Maybe it was. A few minutes later, another man approached, this one older, more cautious. He didn't sit right away. Is this seat taken? She didn't answer. He hesitated, then sat anyway. For a moment, they said nothing. Then she spoke. You should leave. The man frowned. I just got here. She looked up at him now, and for the first time, Marcus saw her eyes clearly. There was no anger in them, no embarrassment, just certainty. No one wants me, she said quietly. You won't either. The man blinked, thrown off. That's not... She cut him off, her voice still calm, almost gentle. I'm not saying it to be dramatic. I'm saying it so you don't waste your time. The man shifted in his seat, clearly uncomfortable now. I think you're being a little... She rolled her sleeve up again. This time, Marcus saw it clearly. The scars weren't small. They stretched up her arm, twisting across her skin like something that had tried to take everything from her, and almost succeeded. The man stood up before she could even finish lowering her sleeve. Yeah. I just remembered I have somewhere to be. He was gone before that sentence ended. The door chimed again, rain, cold, silence. Marcus exhaled slowly. Around him, people went back to their conversations, their phones, their safe little bubbles, like nothing had happened, like she wasn't sitting there alone, again. Didn't look surprised. She didn't look hurt. That was the part that stayed with him. It was like she'd already lived this moment 100 times, like she knew exactly how it would end before it even started. Marcus stared down at his cup. His reflection looked back at him, tired, worn, older than 34 should look. He thought about getting up, about leaving. It would be easier. It always was. He shifted in his seat, then stopped. Something in his chest refused to move. Across the room, she picked up her cup and took a small sip, her hands steady now, like she'd already accepted it, like this was just how the world worked. Marcus stood, the chair scraped softly against the floor. No one looked up. He walked across the cafe, each step slow, deliberate. Not rushed, not hesitant, just certain. When he reached her table, she didn't look up. You shouldn't, she said before he could speak. Her voice was quieter now, almost tired. Marcus pulled out the chair anyway. I know, he said. He sat down. That's when she finally looked at him. Really looked. Her eyes scanned his face, searching for something. Pity, discomfort, fear. She didn't find it. Instead, she saw something she didn't expect. Stillness. Marcus rested his hands on the table, calm, grounded. I'm Marcus, he said simply. She blinked once, then slowly, she shook her head. You didn't hear me, she said. No one wants me. Marcus leaned back slightly, studying her. Rain tapped softly against the window behind her, the neon light flickering across her face. I heard you, he replied. Silence stretched between them. She held his gaze, waiting for the moment, the one she knew was coming, the moment he'd stand up, make an excuse, walk away. Marcus didn't move, not an inch. Something shifted in her expression. Just a crack, barely visible. You don't understand, she said quietly. Then help me, Marcus replied. Her fingers tightened around the cup. For the first time, her composure faltered. Just a little. People leave, she said. Every time. Marcus nodded slowly. Maybe, he said. She frowned slightly. But I'm not people, he added. That hung in the air between them, heavy, unfamiliar. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. Inside, the cafe felt smaller somehow, quieter, like the whole world had narrowed down to this one table. Her eyes searched his again, deeper this time, looking for the lie, looking for the moment he'd break. Marcus didn't look away, and for the first time that night, she didn't either. Something unspoken passed between them. Not trust, not yet, but something close to it. Something fragile, something dangerous. Because if she believed him, even for a second, it would change everything. She swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper now. You should leave while you still can. Marcus leaned forward slightly, his voice calm, steady. I'm good right here. The rain outside came down harder, and somewhere deep beneath her guarded silence, something began to crack, just enough to matter, but not enough to understand why. Not yet. The rain hadn't let up by the time Marcus stepped back out into the night. The cafe door closed behind him with a soft click, sealing in the warmth and the quiet tension he'd just left behind. For the second, he stood under the flickering awning, letting the cold air hit his face. He exhaled slowly. Something about that woman stayed with him, not just the scars, not even the words. It was the way she said them, like she wasn't asking for sympathy or attention or even understanding. She was giving people a warning. And somehow, he had ignored it. Marcus pulled his hood up and started walking. Detroit at night had a rhythm to it. Distant sirens, the hum of tires on wet asphalt, the low buzz of streetlights fighting to stay alive. The sidewalks were mostly empty, except for a few figures moving fast, heads down, trying to get out of the cold. Marcus wasn't in a hurry. He rarely was. His boots splashed through shallow puddles as he made his way down the block, past a boarded-up storefront, past a liquor store glowing too bright against the darkness, past a man curled up under a thin blanket near the bus stop. Marcus slowed. He recognized him. "Hey," Marcus said gently. The man stirred, blinking up at him through tired eyes. "Marcus?" Marcus nodded, crouching down slightly. "Yeah. You eat today?" The man hesitated, then shook his head. Marcus reached into his backpack and pulled out a wrapped container. It wasn't much, leftover food from the community kitchen where he worked, but it was warm. He handed it over without a word. The man took it like it was something fragile. "Man, you didn't have to, I know," Marcus said. Still did. The man gave a small, grateful smile, already opening the container, steam rising into the cold air. Marcus stood back up. "Stay dry if you can," he added, then he kept walking. He didn't look back. He never did, because if you looked back too long, you started asking questions, and Marcus had learned a long time ago, some questions didn't have answers that helped. The bus stop came into view a few blocks ahead. The overhead light flickered, casting uneven shadows across the cracked pavement. A handful of people stood waiting, spaced apart like strangers who preferred it that way. Marcus stepped under the shelter, shaking the rain from his jacket. A woman glanced at him, then quickly looked away, clutching her purse a little tighter. He noticed. He always noticed. It wasn't new. He leaned against the metal pole, hands in his pockets, eyes forward. The bus was late. Of course it was. A man in a suit muttered under his breath, checking his watch for the third time in less than a minute. Marcus watched the water drip from the edge of the shelter, forming a steady rhythm against the ground. Drip, drip, drip. His mind wandered back to the cafe, to her, to the way she looked at him, like she was waiting for something to break. And when it didn't, there had been something else in her eyes. Not trust, not yet, but confusion, like his choice didn't make sense. Marcus shifted his weight. Maybe it didn't. The bus finally pulled up with a tired hiss, brakes squealing slightly, as it came to a stop. The doors folded open. People filed in without a word. Marcus stepped up last, dropping his fare into the box, the driver barely glancing at him. "Evenin'," Marcus said. The driver grunted something that might have been a response. Marcus moved down the aisle, the fluorescent lights overhead casting everything in a dull, washed-out glow. He took a seat near the back. The bus jerked forward, pulling away from the curb. Outside, the city blurred past. Wet streets, glowing signs, empty sidewalks. Inside, it was quiet. Too quiet. Marcus rested his head back against the seat, closing his eyes for just a moment. He could feel the weight in his body, the kind that didn't come from just one long day, but from 1,000 of them stacked together. Work, bills, worry, repeat. At 34, Marcus looked older than he should have, not broken, just worn, like something that had been used too much without ever being replaced. The bus rattled over a pothole, jolting him slightly. He opened his eyes again. Across the aisle, a teenage kid was scrolling on his phone, laughing quietly at something on the screen. 2 seats ahead, an older woman stared out the window, lost in her own thoughts. No one spoke. No one connected. Everyone just existed. Marcus understood that feeling, more than he wanted to. The bus made another stop. A couple got off. No one got on. More empty seats, more space, more silence. Marcus reached into his pocket, pulling out his phone. A message blinked on the screen. "From Mrs. Alvarez, she's already asleep. Don't worry, ate all her dinner." Marcus's shoulders eased just a little. He typed back quickly, "Thank you, I'll be there soon." He slipped the phone away, staring out the window again. His daughter, she was the reason he kept moving, the reason he got up before sunrise, worked until his hands ached, came home with just enough energy to make sure she never felt the cracks in his world. She deserved more. More than this city, more than this life, more than a father who was constantly one bad week away from losing everything. Marcus clenched his jaw slightly. He pushed the thought away. No, he didn't let himself go there, because once you started thinking about everything you didn't have, you stopped appreciating what you did. The bus slowed again, his stop. Marcus stood, steadying himself as the vehicle came to a halt. The doors opened, cold air rushed in. He stepped out into the night once more. The rain had softened now, falling in a light mist that clung to everything. The apartment building loomed ahead, old, tired, paint peeling from the edges, windows glowing faintly from within. Home. Marcus walked up the steps, unlocking the door quietly. Inside, the hallway smelled like old carpet and something fried hours ago. He moved down the hall, his boots echoing softly. When he reached his door, he paused for just a second, took a breath, then stepped inside. The apartment was small, 2 rooms, 1 light on. The television hummed quietly in the corner, muted. On the couch, Mrs. Alvarez sat with a blanket draped over her shoulders, half asleep. She stirred as he entered. "Marcus, yeah," he said softly. "I'm back." She smiled, tired but warm. She didn't want to go to bed without you. Tried to wait. Marcus's chest tightened just a little. "Thank you for staying, of course." She waved him off gently. "She's a good girl," Marcus nodded. He already knew that. Mrs. Alvarez gathered her things slowly, heading for the door. "Get some rest," she said as she left. "You look like you need it." Marcus chuckled under his breath. "I always need it." The door closed behind her. Silence settled over the apartment. Marcus walked down the short hallway to the bedroom. He pushed the door open just enough to peek inside. His daughter lay curled up under the blanket, her small hand tucked under her cheek, breathing soft and steady. For a moment, Marcus just stood there, watching, memorizing. because moments like this, they made everything else worth it. He stepped inside quietly, pulling the blanket up just a little higher over her shoulder. She stirred slightly, but didn't wake. Marcus leaned down, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "I got you," he whispered. Then he stepped back, closing the door halfway. Back in the living room, he sank down onto the couch, letting his body finally relax. The weight of the day pressed in, but something else was there too, something he couldn't quite shake. Her voice. "No one wants me." Marcus stared at the dark screen of the television, his reflection faintly visible. He thought about the way she had said it. Not angry, not bitter, just certain. Like it wasn't a feeling, it was a fact. Marcus rubbed his hands together slowly. People like that, they didn't come out of nowhere. Something had made her believe that. Something real, something heavy, and for some reason, he couldn't let it go. Outside, the rain continued its quiet rhythm against the windows. Inside, Marcus sat in the dim light, staring into nothing, tired, worn, but awake, because somewhere in this city, that woman was probably sitting alone again, waiting for the next person to leave. And Marcus, he couldn't stop wondering why, not yet. Morning came quietly. Gray light slipped through the thin curtains of Marcus's apartment, soft and cold, like the city itself hadn't fully woken up yet. The heater rattled in the corner, doing its best to fight off the chill, but it never quite won. Marcus was already up. He stood in the kitchen, pouring cereal into a bowl, while keeping one eye on the clock above the stove. Every minute mattered. Every second had a place. "Dad?" The small voice came from the hallway. Marcus turned. His daughter stood there, hair messy, blanket still wrapped around her shoulders, like armor against the morning. She blinked sleepily at him. "Hey, kiddo," Marcus said, his voice softening instantly. "You're up early." She shuffled into the kitchen, dragging the blanket behind her. "I had a dream." "Oh yeah?" Marcus slid the bowl across the counter toward her. "Good one or bad one?" She climbed onto the chair, thinking about it. "Weird one." Marcus smiled faintly. "Those are the worst kind." She nodded seriously, picking up the spoon. There was the lady. She was standing in the rain, and nobody was helping her. Marcus froze, just for a second. Then he leaned back against the counter, her arms crossed loosely. "What happened to her?" he asked. His daughter shrugged. "I don't know. Everyone just walked past." Marcus swallowed, his eyes drifting for a moment. Then he forced a small smile. "Well, maybe someone helped her." She looked up at him, curious. "You think so?" "I think," Marcus said slowly, "there's always at least one person who stops." She seemed satisfied with that. Kids were like that. They believed things could be better. Marcus hoped she never lost that. The rest of the morning moved quickly. Shoes, backpacks, reminders, the usual rhythm of getting out the door. Marcus walked her to the bus stop, standing with her under the weak morning sun as the city came alive around them. Cars rushed past. People moved fast. Nobody made eye contact. When the bus arrived, she hugged him tight. "Don't forget," she said, pointing at him seriously. "Someone has to stop." Marcus let out a soft breath. "I won't forget," he promised. She climbed onto the bus, waving through the window as it pulled away. Marcus stood there for a moment longer than he needed to. Then he turned and headed back toward the same streets he walked every day, same buildings, same faces, same feeling, invisible. By the time he reached the community kitchen, the place was already alive with noise. Pots clanged, voices echoed, and the smell of cooking filled the air. Marcus tied on his apron without a word. "You're late," someone called from across the room. "2 minutes," Marcus replied, grabbing a tray, still late. Marcus didn't argue. He never did. Work was work, and work meant survival. The hours blurred together, serving food, cleaning up, starting over. Faces came and went, some grateful, some not. Marcus treated them all the same, because that's who he was, not because the world deserved it, but because he chose it. By late afternoon, his back ached, and his hands were sore. He wiped them on a towel, glancing at the clock. Almost done. Almost time to leave. But his mind wasn't there. It kept drifting, back to the cafe, back to the woman, back to those words. No one wants me. Marcus shook his head slightly, trying to focus. Didn't matter, not his problem. That's what people would say, that's what he should say, but something about it didn't sit right. When his shift ended, he stepped outside into the fading light. The sky was heavy again, clouds gathering like they had unfinished business. The air smelled like rain. Marcus adjusted his jacket and started walking. He didn't think about where he was going at first. Not consciously, but his feet, they knew. The cafe came into view at the end of the block, its neon sign flickering like it was barely holding on. Marcus slowed. He could keep walking. He should keep walking, but he didn't. Instead, he pushed the door open. The bell chimed. Warm air wrapped around him. And there she was, same corner, same seat, same stillness, like she had never left. Marcus stood there for a second, watching. No one else approached her this time. No one even looked. It was worse somehow, being avoided completely, like she didn't exist. Marcus walked over without hesitation. He pulled out the chair, sat down. She didn't look up right away. You again, she said after a moment. Not surprised, just tired. Marcus gave a small nod. Yeah. Silence stretched between them. The waitress came over, hesitant again. Coffee? She asked Marcus. Black, he said. She nodded and left quickly. The woman across from him finally looked up. Her eyes studied him carefully now. Different from last night, more cautious, more curious. You don't learn fast, do you? She said. Marcus shrugged slightly. I learn what matters. That made her pause. Just a fraction. Then she looked away again. You should really stop coming here, she said quietly. People will start talking. Marcus leaned back in his chair, unfazed. People already talk. That doesn't bother you? He thought about it, then shook his head, not as much as it used to. She let out a soft, almost humorless laugh. Must be nice. Marcus didn't respond right away, because it wasn't nice. It was just necessary. The coffee arrived. He wrapped his hands around the cup, letting the warmth settle in. Outside, the first drops of rain began to fall again, tapping softly against the glass. You never answered my question, Marcus said. She stiffened slightly. What question? Why? She stared at him, then shook her head slowly. You don't want that answer. Try me. Another pause. Longer this time, the kind that felt like standing at the edge of something. She looked down at her hands. Then slowly, she reached for her sleeve again. Marcus didn't look away this time. Didn't flinch, didn't react. He just watched. The scars caught the light differently today, less shocking, more real, like part of her, not the whole story, but a chapter. People see this, she said quietly, and they decide who I am. Marcus nodded once. People decide a lot of things they don't understand. She looked up at him again, searching. Searching. You really don't get it, she said. It's not just this, then what is it? The question hung between them, heavy, unanswered. Her lips parted slightly, like she might say it, like she might finally let him in. But then, the door chimed. Both of them turned. A man stepped inside, tall, well-dressed, expensive coat. Out of place in this cafe, the room shifted again. Not like before, this was different. People noticed him. The man's eyes scanned the room. then landed on her, and everything changed. Her posture tightened instantly, her breathing shifted. Fear, real fear, Marcus saw it, and for the first time, he understood. This wasn't just about being unwanted. This was about something deeper, something dangerous. The man started walking toward them, slow, confident, like he already owned the room. Marcus straightened slightly in his chair, his grip tightened just a little around the coffee cup. The woman across from him whispered, barely audible, "You should leave. Now." Marcus didn't move. He watched the man approach, closer, closer, until he was standing right at their table, looking down at them, at her, then at Marcus. And when he spoke, his voice was calm, but sharp enough to cut. "You don't belong here," he said. But he wasn't talking to her. He was talking to Marcus, and suddenly, this wasn't just her story anymore. It was his too. The cafe fell quiet in a way that didn't feel natural. Not silence, not peace. Something tighter, something waiting. Marcus didn't look away from the man standing over their table. He didn't shrink, didn't flinch. But there was a subtle shift in him, a grounding, like his body had already decided this moment mattered. The man studied him with open irritation, the kind that didn't need to be hidden. "Well," the man said, "you heard me." Marcus took a slow sip of his coffee before answering. "I heard you," he said calmly. The man's jaw tightened. That wasn't a suggestion. Marcus set the cup down carefully. Didn't sound like one. Across from him, Evelyn's hands had curled tightly around her sleeve. She wasn't looking at Marcus anymore. She was looking at the man. And there it was again. That fear, not imagined, not exaggerated. Real. "Marcus," she whispered, her voice barely there. "Please." Marcus glanced at her briefly, then back at the man. "What's your name?" Marcus asked. The question seemed to catch the man off guard. "Excuse me?" "Your name," Marcus repeated. "You're telling me where I belong. Figured I should know who's making that call." A flicker of something crossed the man's face. Not confusion, annoyance. "Richard Hale," he said finally, like it should mean something. It did. The name settled into the room like a stone dropped into still water. Someone near the counter looked up. Another person shifted in their seat. Marcus noticed the reaction. Didn't change anything on his face. "All right, Richard," Marcus said. "Steady, now I know." Richard's lips pressed into a thin line. "Then you should also know when to walk away from something that doesn't concern you." Marcus leaned back slightly in his chair. "You walked over here," he said. "Seems like it concerns you." For a moment, no one moved. Rain tapped harder against the windows now, like the city itself was leaning in to listen. Richard's eyes shifted toward Evelyn. "You really doing this again?" he asked her, his voice colder now. Evelyn didn't answer. Her silence said enough. Richard exhaled sharply, dragging a hand through his hair. "You don't get it, do you? This," he gestured vaguely toward Marcus, toward the table, toward everything. "This doesn't end well." Marcus followed the gesture. "Doesn't seem like it started well either," he said. "That did it." Richard's attention snapped back to him, irritation turning into something sharper. "You think you're helping?" Richard said. "You don't even know what you're sitting across from." Marcus held his gaze. "Then tell me." A beat. Richard let out a short, humorless laugh. "No," he said. "That's not my job." He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "But you should listen when someone gives you a warning." Marcus didn't move, didn't blink. "Funny thing about warnings," he said quietly. "They usually come with a reason." Richard straightened, clearly done with the conversation. "You'll figure it out," he said. "Everyone does." He glanced at Evelyn one last time. There was something in his expression, Not anger, not pity, something controlled. "Take care of yourself," he said to her. But it didn't sound like concern. It sounded like distance. Final. Then he turned, walked out. The door chimed. Cold air rushed in, and just like that, he was gone. The tension didn't leave with him. It stayed, hung in the air. Marcus let out a slow breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Across from him, Evelyn hadn't moved. Her hands were still clenched, her eyes fixed on their door. "Hey," Marcus said softly. She blinked, like she was coming back from somewhere far away. "You should have left," she said. Her voice wasn't sharp this time, just tired. Marcus leaned forward slightly. "You keep saying that, because it's true. Didn't feel true a minute ago." She shook her head. "You don't understand how this works. Then explain it." She laughed quietly, not because it was funny, because it wasn't. "That man," nodding toward the door, "doesn't make empty statements." Marcus studied her. "X?" She flinched. "Just slightly. Something like that," she said. That was all he needed to know, not everything, but enough. Marcus nodded slowly. "All right." Evelyn looked at him, confused by the calm response. "That's it?" she asked. "You're just going to say all right?" Marcus shrugged lightly. "What do you want me to say?" "I want you to leave," she said. The words came out faster this time, more desperate, before he could respond, before she lost the nerve to say them. Marcus leaned back again, studying her. "Why?" he asked. "Because you're making this worse." "For who?" "For you." That hung there. Marcus tilted his head slightly. "I've been worse," he said. Evelyn shook her head again, more firmly now. "No, you haven't seen this kind of worse." Marcus didn't argue, but he didn't agree either. Instead, he reached into his bag, pulled out a small container, set it on the table. Evelyn looked at it like it didn't belong there. "What's that?" she asked. "Food," Marcus said. "From work." "I didn't ask. I know." She stared at the container, then back at him. "I'm not a charity case," she said, her voice tightening. Marcus nodded. "Didn't say you were. Then why are you doing this?" That question again. Different tone, same weight. Marcus thought about it for a second, then answered simply, "Because I can." Evelyn held his gaze, searching, trying to find the angle, the motive, the catch. There wasn't one. That's what made it harder to believe. "You don't know me," she said. Marcus gave a small shrug. "Don't have to. That's not how people work." "Maybe not," he said, "but it's how I work." Silence stretched again, longer this time. Evelyn looked down at the container, then away, then back again. Her hand moved toward it, stopped, pulled back, like touching it would mean something. Marcus didn't push, didn't say anything. He just waited. Finally, took it, not gracefully, not gratefully, just took it, like she didn't have the energy to refuse anymore. "Don't make this a habit," she muttered. Marcus nodded. Wouldn't dream of it. That earned him the smallest reaction. Not quite a smile, but close enough to matter. Outside, the rain softened again. Inside, the cafe felt different, not lighter, not yet. But something had shifted. Something small, something fragile. Evelyn opened the container slowly. The warmth rising up between them, she hesitated before taking the first bite. Marcus looked away, giving her space. Because this mattered more than anything he could say. A minute passed, then two. Then she spoke again, quieter this time. "Why didn't you leave?" she asked. Marcus leaned back, staring at the ceiling for a second before answering. "Because you told me to." She frowned slightly. "That doesn't make sense." Marcus looked at her again. "Yeah," he said. "I get that a lot." Evelyn shook her head, almost smiling despite herself. Then her expression faded again. Serious, careful. You should still go, she said, before it gets worse. Marcus stood. For a moment, her shoulders relaxed, until he reached for his jacket, not leaving, just getting ready. I'll walk you out, he said. She froze. I didn't ask you to do that, I know. She stared at him, then toward the door, then back at him. The hesitation was real, but so was the fear. And fear, it doesn't argue. It just decides. Fine, she said finally, reluctantly. Marcus nodded once. They walked out together. The rain had almost stopped now, leaving the streets slick and shining under the streetlights. Cars passed slowly. Distant music drifted from somewhere down the block. Evelyn pulled her coat tighter around herself. You don't have to, I know, Marcus said again. They walked in silence, side by side. Two people who didn't belong in the same story, but somehow ended up in the same scene. At the corner, she stopped. This is far enough, Marcus nodded. All right. She hesitated, like she wanted to say something, like she didn't know how. Then she shook her head. Don't come back tomorrow, she said. Marcus smiled faintly. Can't promise that. She let out a breath, somewhere between frustration and something else. Then she turned, walked away into the night. Marcus stood there, watching until she disappeared around the corner. The street fell quiet again, empty, still. He shoved his hands into his pockets, exhaled slowly. He should have walked away. Anyone else would have. But Marcus had never been very good at doing what everyone else did. And deep down, he knew something now, something he couldn't ignore. This wasn't just about a woman with scars. This wasn't just about being unwanted. This was about something bigger, something hidden, something dangerous. And whether he liked it or not, he had already stepped into it. The question wasn't if it would affect him. The question was how far it would go and whether he was ready for it. He didn't have that answer. Not yet. The next morning came slower than usual. Detroit woke under a gray sky, the kind that pressed low against the rooftops and made everything feel smaller. The streets were still damp from last night's rain, reflecting dull streaks of neon and traffic lights like fading memories. Marcus stepped out of his apartment building, pulling his jacket tighter against the chill. His daughter, Lila, stood beside him, her small hand wrapped around his. You look tired, she said, looking up at him. Marcus smiled faintly. That obvious? You were up late, just thinking. Lila tilted her head. About the lady? Marcus paused for a second. Kids noticed more than people gave them credit for. Something like that, he said. Lila didn't push. She never did. She just nodded, like she understood more than she said, and started walking toward the bus stop. Marcus followed, but his mind wasn't on the morning. It was still back in that cafe. Still on Evelyn. Still on Richard Hale. The name sat heavy in his thoughts, not because of who the man was, but because of how everyone reacted when he said it. That wasn't normal. That wasn't just some rich guy. That was someone people feared. And Evelyn didn't just fear him. She expected him, like he was part of something she couldn't escape. The bus arrived with a long hiss, brakes releasing a cloud of steam into the cold air. Marcus and Lila climbed on, taking their usual seats near the back. As the city moved past the window, brick buildings, closed storefronts, people rushing to nowhere, Marcus found himself scanning faces, looking, watching. He didn't even know what he was looking for. But something in him had changed. Something had clicked into place. A quiet awareness, the kind that told you weren't just passing through your day anymore. Your day was watching you back. Dad? Marcus blinked, turning to Lila. Yeah? You're doing it again. Doing what? Thinking too hard. He chuckled softly. Didn't know that was a thing. It is when your face gets like that. What face? She scrunched her own face up, trying to imitate him. Marcus laughed this time, the sound breaking through the weight in his chest. All right, he said. I'll try to stop. But he didn't, not really, because by the time he dropped Lila off at school and headed toward the community kitchen where he worked, he already knew. He was going back to the cafe. He wasn't supposed to. Evelyn had made that clear, but some part of him refused to listen. Because it didn't feel like curiosity anymore. It felt like responsibility. And Marcus had never been good at ignoring that. The cafe looked the same as always. Same flickering light, same worn tables, same quiet hum of conversations. But Evelyn wasn't there. Marcus stood just inside the door for a moment, scanning the room. Empty corner, no coat, no shadow sitting where she always sat. He walked up to the counter. "Morning," the owner said, not looking up from the register. "Morning," Marcus replied. "You seen her today?" The owner paused, then glanced up. "You mean the woman from last night?" Marcus nodded. The owner hesitated, like deciding how much to say. "She left early," he said, "before we even opened. Say where she was going." "Nope." Marcus frowned slightly. "That normal?" The owner shrugged. "Nothing about her is normal." Marcus exhaled slowly, nodding. "Yeah, I'm starting to see that." He grabbed a coffee and sat down anyway, in her spot, or close enough. Time passed. 10 minutes, 20, nothing. Marcus told himself he'd leave soon. Just finish the coffee, just sit for a bit. The door chimed. He looked up instinctively. Not Evelyn, someone else. A man in a dark coat, stepping inside like he owned the place without needing to prove it. Clean shoes, sharp posture, eyes that moved without looking lost. Marcus recognized him immediately, Richard Hale again. But this time, he wasn't looking at Evelyn. He was looking for Marcus. Their eyes met across the room, and for a moment, neither of them moved. Then Richard walked over. Didn't rush, didn't hesitate, just crossed the space like it belonged to him. "You don't listen very well," Richard said, stopping at the table. Marcus leaned back slightly. "Depends who's talking." Richard glanced at the empty seat across from him. "Where is she?" Marcus shrugged. "Not here. That much I can see." Marcus didn't answer. Richard studied him for a moment. Longer this time, like he was trying to figure something out. "You don't know anything, do you?" Richard said finally. Marcus held his gaze. "Know enough to sit here." Richard let out a small breath through his nose, almost amused. "That's them," he said. "You think this is simple." Marcus tilted his head slightly. "Is it not?" Richard's eyes darkened just a fraction. "No," he said. "It's not." Silence stretched between them again, heavy, measured. Then Richard reached into his coat, pulled out a card, set it on the table. It slid across the surface, stopping just in front of Marcus. "If you see her," Richard said, "you call me." Marcus didn't touch the card. "What makes you think I'd do that?" Richard didn't smile, but something in his expression shifted. Confidence. "I'm not asking you to help me," he said. "I'm giving you a chance to stay out of something that will ruin you." Marcus glanced down at the card, then back up. "Feels like the same thing. It's not." Marcus tapped the table lightly. "Then what is it?" Richard leaned in slightly, close enough for his voice to drop. "It's a warning," he said, "and you've already ignored one." Marcus didn't look away. "Maybe I don't scare easy." Richard studied him again, longer, deeper, then he straightened. "No," he said quietly. "You just don't know what you're up against." He turned to leave, then stopped. Without looking back, he added, "She doesn't need saving." And then he was gone. The door chimed. Cold air slipped in, and Marcus sat there, staring at the card, not touching it, not moving, because something about what Richard said didn't sit right. She doesn't need saving. That wasn't a warning. That was a contradiction, because everything about Evelyn screamed the opposite. Fear, isolation, running. So if she didn't need saving, then what did she need? And more importantly, from who? Marcus reached for the card. Finally, picked it up, turned it over. Simple, clean, a name, a number. Power, reduced to ink and paper. He slipped it into his pocket. Not because he planned to call, but because throwing it away felt like pretending none of this mattered. And that wasn't true anymore. Not after last night. Not after this. Marcus stood up slowly, finished his coffee, and stepped back out into the street. The city felt different now, louder, closer, like something unseen had started moving just beneath the surface. He looked down the block, then the other way, trying to decide where to go next, where she might be. Because one thing was clear now. This wasn't over, not even close. And whether he wanted it or not, he was already in it. Deeper than he realized, the question wasn't if he'd find her. It was, what would happen when he did? Marcus didn't go home right away. The sky had darkened again, clouds rolling in low and heavy, like the city was bracing for something it couldn't stop. Streetlights flickered on one by one, casting long shadows across cracked sidewalks and puddles that hadn't fully dried. He walked without direction at first, past the corner store where the neon beer sign buzzed softly, past the bus stop where tired people leaned against cold metal benches, eyes lost in places far away, past the alley behind the supermarket. And that's when he saw her, Evelyn. She stood half hidden between the tall brick walls, the faint glow of a distant street lamp barely reaching her. Her shoulders were tense, her head slightly lowered, as if she were listening for something no one else could hear. Marcus slowed his steps, didn't call out right away. Something about the way she stood there, still but not at peace, made him careful. "Evelyn," he said quietly. She flinched, not dramatically, just enough, like someone who had learned to expect danger before anything else. Her head turned sharply, eyes searching the darkness before they landed on him. For a second, her face tightened, then relaxed. Just a little. "You shouldn't be here," she said. Her voice was low, not cold this time, tired. Marcus stepped closer, hands visible, slow and deliberate. "I was looking for you. That was your first mistake. Wouldn't be my worst." She let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh, most. "You don't listen," she said. "I've been told that." Silence stretched between them. The city hummed faintly beyond the alley. Cars passing, distant voices, life continuing as if this moment didn't matter. But it did. Marcus could feel it. "You left the cafe," he said, "before sunrise. I leave places before people get used to me. That a rule? That's survival." Marcus nodded slowly. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small paper bag. "I brought you something," he said. Evelyn's eyes flicked to it, then back to him. "I told you. I know what you told me." He stepped closer and held it out anyway. Warm food, simple, nothing special, but real. Evelyn stared at it like it was something dangerous, not tempting, not comforting. Dangerous. "You don't understand," she said. "Then help me," Marcus replied. She looked up at him, really looked this time, like she was trying to decide something, not about the food, about him. Finally, slowly, she reached out, took the bag. Her fingers brushed his for just a second, and Marcus felt it, that tension again, that quiet electricity, fear, not of him, of everything else. She stepped back, opening the bag slightly, the smell of warm bread and soup rising into the cold air. For a moment, she looked almost normal, almost like someone who had just been hungry. But it didn't last. Her shoulders tightened again. Her eyes moved, scanning, watching. "Are you being followed?" Marcus asked. Evelyn froze, just for a heartbeat. Then she looked at him, sharp, careful. "Why would you ask that?" Marcus shrugged lightly. "Because you're acting like someone who is, longer this time." Then Evelyn exhaled slowly, and something in her changed. Not relaxed, but resigned. "You need to leave," she said. "I'm not leaving you here. That's not your decision." Marcus took another step closer. "Then whose is it?" Evelyn shook her head. "You don't know what this is. Then tell me." Her grip tightened on the bag. "You won't walk away if I do." Marcus didn't hesitate. No, that answer landed heavier than anything else he had said. Evelyn stared at him. Really stared. And for the first time since he met her, the wall cracked. Not broken, but cracked. "You think this is about being alone," she said quietly. "About people not wanting me." Marcus didn't interrupt. "You think it's some sad story," she continued. "Something you can fix by being kind." "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." She stepped back again, leaning against the cold brick wall. Rain began to fall lightly again, soft drops tapping against the alley floor. "I wasn't always like this," she said. Marcus stayed still, listened. "There was a time," she went on, her voice distant now, "when people did want me, when rooms would quiet when I walked in, when everything I touched mattered." Marcus frowned slightly. What happened? Evelyn looked down at her hands, at the sleeves she always pulled low, at the parts she kept hidden. Then back up. "Fire," she said. The word hung in the air, simple but heavy. Marcus felt his chest tighten. "An accident?" he asked. Evelyn's eyes met his, and for the first time, there was something else there. Not fear, not pain, something sharper. "No," she said. The rain grew steadier now, tapping louder, washing over the alley like a quiet warning. "It wasn't an accident." Marcus didn't move, didn't speak, because he knew whatever came next was going to change everything. Evelyn swallowed slowly. "There was a house," she said. "Big, too big. The kind of place people think means you're safe." Marcus listened. "It burned in the middle of the night," she continued. "Fast, controlled, like someone knew exactly what they were doing." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain, and you were inside. Evelyn nodded once. "I got out," she said, "barely." Her hand tightened around the bag, but not before losing everything. Marcus's voice dropped. "Everything? Meaning?" Evelyn didn't answer right away. The rain filled the silence. Then, "My name," she said. Marcus blinked. "What? My life," she clarified. "My identity, my place in the world." She stepped forward slightly now, closer to him and my husband. Marcus felt it, the shift, the weight of what she was about to say. "He didn't die in that fire," Evelyn said quietly. Marcus frowned. "Then what happened?" Evelyn's lips pressed together, and when she spoke again, her voice was steady but colder than before. "He walked away from it," she said, untouched. Marcus stared at her, trying to understand. "You're saying, Evelyn cut in, "that Richard Hale didn't lose anything that night." The name hit like a strike. Marcus's heart skipped. "Richard Hale?" he repeated. Evelyn nodded. "My husband." The world seemed to narrow, the alley, the rain, the distant city noise. All of it faded, leaving just that one truth. Marcus stepped back slightly, trying to process it. "The man from the cafe, the man who told you to stay away from me," Evelyn said. Marcus ran a hand over his face. "That's not—" "It is," she said. Silence fell again. He looked at her, really looked this time, at the way she held herself, at the way she hid, at the way she watched everything like it might turn on her at any second. And suddenly, it made sense, not all of it, but enough. "He did this to you," Marcus said. It wasn't a question. Evelyn didn't answer. She didn't need to. The truth sat between them, heavy, unavoidable. "You need to go," she said again, softer this time. Marcus shook his head. Evelyn's eyes sharpened. You don't understand what you're choosing. Yeah, Marcus said quietly. I think I do. He stepped closer. Rain soaking through his jacket now, cold, uncomfortable, real. I'm choosing not to walk away, he said. Evelyn stared at him, long, silent. Then she whispered, Everyone says that. Marcus didn't look away. Then they're not me, for a moment. Something flickered in her eyes. Hope, small, fragile. But there. And then, from the far end of the alley, a car engine rumbled. Low, slow, deliberate. Both of them turned. Headlights appeared at the mouth of the alley. Bright, blinding. Evelyn's entire body tensed. Her hand gripped Marcus's arm. Hard. They found me, she whispered. Marcus felt it then. Not confusion, not curiosity. Fear, real fear. And for the first time, he understood. This wasn't just her past. It wasn't just a story. It was still happening, right now. The headlights grew brighter. Engine didn't stop. Marcus's pulse quickened, and one question echoed in his mind. Had he just stepped into something he couldn't get out of? The headlights cut through the rain like a blade. Marcus squinted, instinctively stepping in front of Evelyn, his body reacting before his thoughts could catch up. The engine idled low, steady, patient, like whoever sat behind that wheel wasn't in a hurry. That was worse. Evelyn's grip tightened on his sleeve. Don't, she whispered. Don't try to be brave. Marcus didn't move. I'm not trying to be anything, he said quietly. I'm just not walking away. The car door opened, slow, measured. A man stepped out, dressed in a dark coat that barely caught the light. Not flashy, not loud, just precise, controlled. The kind of presence that didn't need attention. It took it anyway. He didn't come closer right away. Just stood there, rain sliding off his shoulders, eyes fixed on Evelyn, then on Marcus. You shouldn't be here, the man said. Not loud, not angry, but certain. Marcus felt something settle in his chest. A line. You already said that, Marcus replied. Different guy, though. The man's expression didn't change. That wasn't a suggestion, he said. It was a courtesy. Evelyn stepped back slightly behind Marcus. Please, she said under her breath. Don't do this. But Marcus didn't move. Not this time. Who are you? Marcus asked. The man ignored the question. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled out a phone. Tapped the screen once, held it up just enough for Marcus to see. A photo of Marcus, walking Lila to school. The angle was wrong for coincidence, the timing too perfect. Marcus felt the air leave his lungs for a second. Your daughter, the man said calmly. She seems kind. The world went quiet, not literally. Cars still passed somewhere beyond the alley. Rain still fell, but inside Marcus, everything stopped. You don't get to bring her into this, Marcus said, his voice low. The man tilted his head slightly. I didn't bring her into anything, he replied. You did. The moment you decided to stand where you don't belong. Evelyn's voice cracked. Stop, she said. Just stop. I'll go with you. Marcus turned his head sharply. No, Evelyn looked at him, eyes wide. You don't understand, she said. This ends if I leave with them. And what happens to you? Marcus asked. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The man stepped forward now. Just one step. Enough to shift the balance. You're a good man, he said to Marcus. That's clear. But good men make bad decisions when they confuse kindness with obligation. Marcus's jaw tightened. You done talking? He asked. The man studied him, then a faint smile, not warm, not kind, just knowing. You have until tomorrow, he said. Walk away, forget her, forget this. And if I don't? The man's eyes flicked briefly toward Evelyn. Then back, then you'll learn, he said quietly. Why she says no one wants her. The words hung there, heavy, unsettling. The man stepped back toward the car. Door opened, closed, the engine growled to life again. And just like that, they were gone. The headlights disappeared into the street, leaving the alley darker than before. Quieter, but not safer. Marcus stood there, unmoving, the rain soaking through his clothes, his heart still racing. Evelyn pulled her arm away from him slowly. "You should have let me go," she said. Marcus turned to her. "No." Her eyes filled, not with tears, but with something deeper. Fear, frustration, and something close to anger. "You think this is about being strong?" she asked. "About standing your ground?" "No," Marcus said. "I think it's about not letting someone threaten my kid and expect me to just disappear." Evelyn shook her head. "They will hurt you," she said. "They will take everything from you, your job, your home, your peace." Marcus exhaled slowly. "Already had most of that taken," he said. "Still here, that's not the same." "No," he agreed. "It's not." He stepped closer again, "Which is why I'm not leaving." Evelyn stared at him like she wanted to believe him, and hated herself for it. "You don't even know me," she said. "I know enough. What do you know?" she pressed. Mark thought for a second, then answered simply, "I know you didn't deserve what happened to you," he said, "and I know you've been running ever since." Evelyn's breath caught. "You think that makes you special?" she whispered. "That you stayed when others didn't?" Marcus shook his head. "No," he said. "I think it just makes me someone who didn't leave." Silence. Rain softened, turning into a steady drizzle. Evelyn looked away, toward the street, toward the place the car had disappeared. "Not going to stop," she said. "Neither am I." She let out a small, broken laugh. "You don't even know what you're fighting." Marcus shrugged slightly. "Then I'll figure it out." Evelyn closed her eyes for a moment, and when she opened them again, something had shifted. Not gone, not healed, but changed. "Tomorrow," she said quietly. Marcus frowned. "What about tomorrow? They gave you until tomorrow," she said. "So we use that." Evelyn hesitated, then nodded. "Yes," she said. "We." The word felt fragile, like it might break if said too loudly. Marcus let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "Okay," he said. "So what's the plan?" Evelyn looked at him, really looked, and for the first time, there was no wall, no distance, just truth. "The truth," she said. "It's the only thing they're afraid of." Marcus's brow furrowed. "What truth?" Evelyn's eyes darkened slightly. "The fire," she said. "What really happened that night?" Marcus felt a chill run through him again. "And you can prove it?" Evelyn didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned and started walking toward the street. Marcus followed, because of course he did. Because at some point, this stopped being a choice. "I had proof," she said as they reached the sidewalk, "before everything burned. And now?" She stopped under a flickering streetlight, looked back at him. "I think I know where what's left of it is," she said. Marcus's heart picked up again. "Where?" Evelyn hesitated, then said, "In a place Richard believes no one would ever go looking." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then we go there." Evelyn studied him. "You really don't know how to walk away, do you?" Marcus gave a small, tired smile. "Never been my strength." Evelyn looked at him for a long moment. Then, for the first time since they met, she didn't tell him to leave. Instead, she said, "Then you better be ready." Marcus's expression tightened slightly. "For what?" Evelyn turned away, her voice barely above the hum of the city, "for everything to fall apart." The streetlight flickered once more, then steadied, and somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled, soft, but coming closer. The thunder rolled again, louder this time. Marcus lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling of his small apartment, listening to the storm build outside. Rain tapped steadily against the window, each drop a quiet reminder that time was moving forward, whether he was ready or not. Beside the wall, on a thin mattress, Lila slept peacefully. That was the part that made it harder. Marcus turned his head, watching her for a long moment. The soft rise and fall of her chest, the calm in her face, the kind of peace he wished he could borrow for just a few hours. But his mind wouldn't let him. Tomorrow, the word echoed in him like a warning. Walk away or lose everything. He closed his eyes and saw the photo again. Lila, taken without his knowledge, without his permission, a quiet threat wrapped in calm words. Marcus sat up slowly, running a hand over his face. He had made a choice, and choices had consequences. He knew that. He had lived that. But this felt different. This felt like something bigger than him, bigger than Evelyn. And for the first time, he wondered if he had just put the only thing that mattered in his life in danger. Morning didn't bring clarity. It brought silence, the kind that feels wrong before you even know why. Marcus stepped into the community kitchen, the familiar smell of soup and fresh bread usually grounding him. Today, it didn't. People moved around him, voices low, glances quick. Something was off. Marcus. He turned. Mr. Collins, the manager, stood near the back door, arms crossed. We need to talk. Marcus nodded slowly. He had a feeling. They stepped into the small office, the door closing with a soft click that felt louder than it should. Mr. Collins didn't sit. Neither did Marcus. Look, Collins started, rubbing the back of his neck. You've been a good worker, reliable, respectful. Marcus said nothing. But I got a call this morning, Collins continued. From someone important. There it was. Marcus exhaled quietly. And? He asked. Collins hesitated, then looked him straight in the eye. They said if you keep showing up here, funding disappears. Marcus felt the words hit, not like a blow, more like something slowly tightening around his chest. This place feeds people, Marcus said. I know, kids, families, I know that too. Then you're really going to let someone shut that down because of me? Collins's voice softened. I'm not letting anything happen, he said. I'm trying to stop it before it starts. Marcus looked away. For a moment, the room felt too small. So that's it? He asked. I'm done? Collins swallowed. I'm sorry, Marcus. Marcus nodded once, slow, controlled. I understand. And he did. That was the worst part. He understood. Because when you lived where he lived, power didn't knock. It didn't argue. It decided. Marcus grabbed his jacket. No anger, no raised voice, just quiet acceptance. Take care of yourself, Collins said. Marcus paused at the door, then opened it, and walked out. By noon, the sky had cleared, but nothing else had. Marcus stood outside his apartment building, holding a letter in his hand. He had read it twice. Didn't need to read it again. Rent increase, effective immediately, unrealistic, unfair, but legal. He let out a breath that felt like it had been building for hours. Perfect timing, he muttered. Across the street, Mrs. Darnell, his neighbor who usually waved, looked at him briefly, then turned away, like she didn't see him, like she didn't want to. Marcus felt it, that shift, that invisible line people crossed when it became inconvenient to stand near you. He folded the letter slowly and slipped it into his pocket, then looked up, at the building, at the windows, at the life he had tried to hold together with quiet effort and stubborn hope. And for the first time in a long time, he felt it slipping. That night, the cafe felt colder, not because of the weather, because of everything Marcus carried into it. Evelyn sat in her usual corner, half hidden, like always, but when she saw him, she knew. You didn't walk away, she said. Marcus shook his head. No, And he pulled out the letter, set it on the table. Lost my job this morning, he said. Rent just went up. Evelyn didn't touch the paper, didn't need to. She already understood. They move fast, she whispered. Marcus leaned back slightly. Guess I should have listened. Evelyn looked down, her voice barely audible. You still can. Marcus let out a short breath. And pretend none of this happened. It's not pretending, she said. It's surviving. Marcus shook his head again. Feels like the same thing. Silence settled between them, heavy, uncomfortable, honest. I didn't want this for you, Evelyn said quietly. Marcus looked at her. I know. And yet you stayed. Yeah. She finally looked up. Why? The question hung there, simple but loaded. Marcus thought about it. About everything, the threats, the fear, the cost. Then he answered. Because walking away would have been easier, he said. And I've spent my whole life watching people take the easy way when it matters. Evelyn's eyes softened. Just a little. That's not a good reason, she said. It's the only one I got. She looked away again. And for the moment, neither of them spoke. Then Evelyn reached into her coat, pulled out a small envelope. Worn, edges slightly bent, she placed it on the table, between them. Marcus frowned. What's that? Part of what's left, she said. He didn't touch it. What does it do? It tells the truth, she replied. Marcus studied the envelope, then looked at her. And the rest? Evelyn hesitated. There's more, she said. Somewhere safe. Safe from who? She gave a small, hollow smile. From the same people who took everything else. Marcus nodded slowly, then reached out. Picked up the envelope. It felt heavier than it should. Not physically, but in what it meant, in what it could change. He looked back at her. So what now? Evelyn met his gaze. And for the first time, there was no doubt in her voice. Now, she said, we stop running. Marcus felt something shift inside him. Not fear, not hesitation. Something steadier, stronger. Okay, he said quietly. But even as the word left his mouth, something outside the cafe caught his attention. A familiar car, parked across the street. Engine off. Lights dark, but unmistakable. Marcus's grip tightened on the envelope. Evelyn followed his gaze, and her face went pale. They're not waiting until tomorrow, she whispered. Marcus didn't look away, didn't move, because this time, he understood. The warning wasn't about giving him time. It was about watching what he'd do with it. And now, the answer was right in front of them. The door to the cafe creaked slightly as someone stepped closer from outside, and Marcus realized everything hadn't just fallen apart. It was about to get worse. The cafe door opened with a low creak. Every sound inside seemed to pause. Marcus didn't turn right away. He didn't need to. He could feel it. The shift in the air. The kind that came when something dangerous stepped into a quiet place and made it smaller. Evelyn's fingers tightened slightly on the edge of the table. Don't react, she whispered. Marcus nodded once, then slowly looked up. Not Richard, not the man from the alley either. This one was different, older, gray at the temples, dressed like someone who belonged in a courtroom or a boardroom. Not a place like this. He walked in calmly, closing the door behind him as if he had all the time in the world. Then he walked straight toward them. No hesitation, no doubt. Evelyn, he said. Her shoulders stiffened. Daniel, she replied. Marcus glanced between them. You know him? Evelyn didn't answer. The man, Daniel, looked at Marcus now, eyes sharp but not hostile. You must be the one causing all this trouble, he said. Marcus didn't flinch. Depends who's asking. Daniel gave a faint nod, like he respected the answer. Then he sat down across from them, without being invited. That's fair, he said. I suppose introductions are overdue. He reached into his coat and pulled out a leather wallet, flipping it open just long enough for Marcus to see a badge. Not police, something else. Legal, private, powerful in a quieter way. "Daniel Reeves," he said. "I represent interests that would prefer this situation to resolve quickly." Marcus leaned back slightly. "Let me guess," he said. "Richard Hale." Daniel didn't confirm it, didn't need to. Evelyn's voice came low and tight. "You shouldn't be here." Daniel sighed softly. "And yet here I am," he said, "because you left me very little choice." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "Choice about what?" Daniel looked at him again, longer this time. "You really don't know, do you?" he said. Marcus didn't answer. Daniel turned his attention back to Evelyn. "You were supposed to stay gone," he said. "Disappear." That was the agreement. Evelyn let out a small, bitter laugh. "Agreement?" she said. "You call that an agreement?" Daniel's expression didn't change. "You survived," he said. "That was more than most would have expected." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. "What does that mean?" he asked. Daniel ignored him again. "You were given an opportunity," he continued, "to walk away with what little you had left." Evelyn leaned forward slightly. "What I had left," she said. "You mean my life?" Daniel met her gaze. "Yes." Silence fell, heavy, uncomfortable. Marcus looked between them. "This isn't making sense," he said. "What agreement? What are you talking about?" Daniel finally turned back to him. "Mr. Reed," he said calmly, "you've stepped into a matter that is far beyond your understanding." Marcus leaned forward now. "Then explain it." Daniel studied him, then sighed again, not annoyed, more like tired. "As much as I would prefer not to," he said. He reached into his coat again, this time pulling out a thin folder, placed it gently on the table, between them. "Everything you think you know about that fire," Daniel said, "is incomplete." Marcus felt his pulse pick up. Evelyn didn't touch the folder, didn't even look at it. "Don't," she said quietly. Marcus glanced at her. "Why?" "Because once you see it," she said, "you won't be able to walk away." Marcus let out the breath. That ship already sailed. He reached for the folder. Evelyn's hand shot out, stopping him, her eyes locked onto his. "This isn't just about him hurting me," she said. "It's about why." Marcus frowned. "Then I need to know." Evelyn's grip tightened, then slowly, she let go. Marcus opened the folder. Inside, photos, documents, reports. At first it didn't make sense, but then, patterns, names, dates, the same addresses appearing again and again, properties owned by Hale Industries, fires, small ones, contained, always ruled accidental, always involving assets that were about to be transferred, sold, or investigated. Marcus's throat went dry. This is a pattern," he said. Daniel nodded slightly. "Business is often about risk management," he said. Marcus looked up sharply. "You're telling me these weren't accidents?" Daniel didn't answer directly, but he didn't deny it either. Marcus turned another page, then stopped. A photo of Evelyn, before, smiling, standing in front of a massive home next to Richard. Marcus felt something twist in his chest. "She was part of it," Daniel said quietly. Marcus's head snapped up. "What?" Evelyn's eyes closed. "Just for a second." "Didn't know," she said. Marcus looked at her, then back at Daniel. "You're saying she helped him?" "I'm saying," Daniel replied carefully, "that she was present, a witness, a participant, whether she understood it or not." "That's not true," Evelyn said. Her voice breaking slightly, Daniel's tone softened. "You signed documents, Evelyn," he said. "You approved transfers. You stood beside him when these properties were acquired." "I trusted him," she whispered. "And that," Daniel said gently, is what made you useful. Marcus's chest tightened. So what changed? He asked. Daniel looked at Evelyn, then back at Marcus. She stopped being useful, he said. The words landed like a weight. Marcus looked down at the folder again. At the final page, a report marked confidential. The fire, Evelyn's home. But this time, it wasn't labeled accidental. It was marked internal containment failure. Marcus frowned. What does that mean? Daniel's voice dropped. It means, he said, that the fire was never supposed to reach her. Silence, complete, unmoving. Marcus felt the world tilt slightly. They tried to kill her, he said. Daniel didn't respond, but his silence said enough. Marcus looked at Evelyn, at the woman who sat across from him, alone, hunted, unwanted. Not because she was broken, but because she knew too much. They thought I wouldn't make it out, she said softly. Marcus's jaw tightened. And when you did? Evelyn looked up, eyes steady now. They erased me, she said. Daniel leaned back slightly. And gave you a chance to stay erased, he added. Marcus closed the folder slowly. His hands felt heavier now. So what is this? He asked. You come here to scare us? To remind her what she lost? Daniel shook his head. No, he said. I came here to end this. Marcus frowned. And what? Daniel's eyes shifted slightly, to the envelope in Marcus's hand, then back to him. That, he said. Marcus's grip tightened. You don't get to take this. Daniel sighed. I'm not asking to take it, he said. I'm asking you to give it back, not happening. Daniel studied him for a moment, then leaned forward, his voice quiet. Serious. You think this is about justice, he said, about exposing the truth. Marcus didn't answer. It's not, Daniel continued. It's about survival. Yours, hers, your daughter's. Marcus felt the name hang there again, unspoken, but present. And if we don't give it to you? Marcus asked. Daniel's expression hardened slightly. Then the next time someone comes through that door, he said, they won't be here to talk. Silence, heavy, unavoidable. Evelyn looked at Marcus. Marcus looked at the envelope, then back at Daniel, and for the first time, he realized something. This wasn't just about revealing the truth. It was about choosing when to fight and when to risk everything. Marcus slowly stood. The chair scraped softly against the floor. I think you should go, he said. Daniel watched him carefully. You're making a mistake, he said. Maybe, Marcus replied, but it's mine to make. Daniel stood as well, adjusted his coat, then looked at Evelyn one last time. You always did have a way of pulling people into things they didn't understand, he said. Evelyn didn't respond. Daniel turned, walked toward the door, paused, and without looking back, you have less time than you think. Then he was gone. The cafe fell silent again. Marcus sat back down slowly, his hands still on the folder. Evelyn stared at him. What are we going to do? She asked. Marcus didn't answer right away, because now, it wasn't just fear driving him, it was something else, something deeper. He looked down at the documents again, then at the envelope, then back at her, and finally said, We finish this. But even as the words left his mouth, one thought lingered in the back of his mind. What if finishing this meant losing everything for real? The question didn't leave Marcus. It stayed with him long after the cafe emptied, long after the chairs were flipped upside down on tables and the lights dimmed to a dull glow. It followed him home, followed him into the silence of his apartment, followed him as he stood in the doorway, watching Lila sleep. Her small frame curled beneath a worn blanket, one arm tucked under her cheek, peaceful, safe, at least for now. Marcus leaned against the doorframe, the envelope still in his hand. He hadn't opened it yet, not really. He had seen the documents Daniel brought, seen enough to understand the danger. But this was different. This was Evelyn's last piece, her truth, her proof, and maybe the only thing keeping her alive. Marcus stepped quietly into the kitchen, set the envelope down on the small table, stared at it. He could walk away, even now, call the number, hand it over, protect his daughter, get his job back, his life back, simple, clean, safe. Marcus closed his eyes, and for a moment, he almost reached for his phone. Almost, but then, he remembered something, the way Evelyn's hand had trembled when she first took the food, the way she looked at every shadow like it might come alive, the way she said, "No one wants me," not because she believed it, because she had been made to. Marcus opened his eyes, looked back at the envelope, and made his choice. Again. He opened it. Inside were photographs, not polished, not staged, real, messy, uncomfortable. Images of documents laid out across tables, contracts, transfers, property records. But what caught Marcus's attention was the handwriting, notes scribbled in the margins, corrections, questions, warnings. Evelyn's handwriting. She hadn't just been there. She had been trying to understand, trying to stop it. Marcus flipped through the pages faster now, heart beating louder. Then, he found it. A small, folded piece of paper tucked between two reports. He unfolded it carefully. A list, names, addresses, dates, and at the bottom, one location circled. Marcus frowned. What is this? He read it again and again. Then it hit him. Not just properties, not just fires. These were storage sites, places where documents were kept before they were cleaned, before records disappeared, before truth was buried. And the circled address was still active, still standing, still untouched. Marcus felt something shift inside him. Hope, small, dangerous, but real. The next morning came fast. Too fast. Marcus barely slept. By the time the sun broke through the clouds, he was already dressed, the envelope tucked securely inside his jacket. Lila sat at the table, eating quietly. She looked up at him. "You leaving early?" she asked. Marcus nodded. "Yeah." She studied him for a moment. "You look different," Marcus paused. "How so? Like you already decided something." He smiled faintly. "Maybe I did." She didn't ask what, didn't need to. Instead, she stood up and walked over to him, wrapped her arms around his waist. Marcus hugged her back, holding her a little tighter than usual. "Be careful," she said softly. Marcus swallowed. "I will." But the truth was, he didn't know if he could keep that promise. Evelyn was already waiting when Marcus returned to the cafe. Same corner, same shadows. But something about her felt different, not weaker, not afraid, focused. "You opened it," she said. Marcus nodded. "I think I found something." Her eyes sharpened. "What?" Marcus sat down across from her, lowered his voice. "There's a location," he said. "A storage site, still active." Evelyn's breath caught. "Where?" He slid the paper across the table. She stared at it for a long moment. Then, a slow exhale. "I thought they cleared everything," she whispered. "Looks like they missed one." Evelyn shook her head slightly. "No," she said. "They didn't miss it." Marcus frowned. "Then why leave it?" Evelyn looked up at him, and this time, there was no fear, only clarity. "Because they don't think anyone knows about it," she said. Marcus leaned back. "That's a mistake." Evelyn's lips curved slightly. "For them," she said. Silence settled between them. But it wasn't heavy anymore. It was sharp, purposeful. "So we go there," Marcus said. Evelyn nodded slowly. "Yes." Marcus hesitated, then asked, "And after that?" Evelyn looked at him, really looked, then said, "After that, everything changes." Marcus felt it again, that edge, that point of no return. He had been standing near it for days. Now, he was about to cross it. "All right," he said. Evelyn reached across the table, not touching him, just close enough. "Once we do this," she said, "there's no going back." Marcus gave a small, tired smile. Wasn't planning on it. Evelyn studied him, then nodded. "Then we go tonight." Marcus's heart picked up. "Tonight, they won't expect it," she said, "and we don't have time to wait." Marcus glanced toward the window. The city moved as usual, cars passing, people walking, life continuing, unaware. He turned back to her. "Then we finish it tonight." Evelyn nodded. But just before she spoke again, her eyes shifted, past him, to the door. Marcus turned slightly, slow, careful. A familiar figure stood outside, across the street, watching, not hiding, not pretending, Richard Hale. This time he wasn't smiling, he wasn't speaking, he was just there. Marcus felt a cold weight settle in his chest. Evelyn's voice dropped to a whisper. "He knows." Marcus didn't look away. "Yeah," he said quietly. "He does." And for the first time, Marcus realized something that made everything heavier. This wasn't just about finding the truth anymore. It was about who would get to it first. The air outside the cafe felt colder than it should have. Marcus stepped out beside Evelyn, the city noise dull and distant, like something wrapped in cotton. Across the street, Richard Hale hadn't moved. He stood with his hands in his coat pockets, posture relaxed, but his eyes locked onto them with a precision that made Marcus's chest tighten. "He's not even hiding it anymore," Marcus muttered. Evelyn didn't answer right away. She just watched Richard for a moment longer, then turned away first. "That means we don't have time," she said quietly. "We go now." "Now?" Marcus glanced at the sky. Late afternoon was already bleeding into evening, clouds hanging low like they were waiting for something to break. Evelyn nodded. "If we wait until night, he'll be ready. He already is." Marcus hesitated, not because he didn't trust her, but because he understood exactly what this meant. No backup plan, no second chance, just one move, and whatever came after it. He exhaled slowly. All right, they didn't speak again as they walked, didn't look back, but Marcus could feel it. That weight behind them, that presence. Richard didn't follow. He didn't need to. The address led them to the edge of the city, past the glow of downtown lights, past the familiar streets Marcus knew, into a quieter place, industrial, forgotten. Old warehouses stretched along cracked asphalt, chain-link fences bending in places where time had pushed too hard. A single flickering streetlight buzzed overhead as they pulled up. Marcus killed the engine. The silence was immediate. "Heavy, this is it?" he asked. Evelyn studied the building ahead. Large, dark, no markings. "Yes," she said. "This is it." Marcus looked at the doors. Locked. Of course. He almost laughed under his breath. "Figures." Evelyn reached into her coat, pulled out a small key. Marcus blinked. "You had that the whole time." "I wasn't sure if it would still work," she said. She stepped forward, each footstep echoing slightly on the empty ground. Marcus followed close behind. The wind picked up, brushing loose debris across the pavement in soft, restless whispers. Evelyn stopped at the door for a second, just a second. Her hand hovered over the lock. Marcus saw it, the hesitation. "Not fear, memory. This is where it started," she said quietly. Marcus didn't ask what she meant. He just said, "Then let's finish it." Evelyn inserted the key, turned it, a click, louder than it should have been. The door creaked open slowly. Darkness inside. Cold, still. Marcus stepped in first. The air smelled like dust and something older, like paper left untouched too long. He reached for a switch. Nothing. "Power's out," he said. Evelyn pulled a small flashlight from her pocket. The beam cut through the darkness. Rows, boxes, stacks upon stacks. Marcus let out a low breath. "This place is full," Evelyn nodded. Everything they didn't want found, they moved deeper inside. The silence wrapped around them, broken only by the sound of their footsteps and the faint hum of the flashlight. Marcus opened the first box he reached. Files, contracts, photos. He flipped through them quickly. Jesus, Evelyn moved beside him, scanning another stack. Her movements were faster now, more certain, like she knew what she was looking for. Then, she stopped. Marcus looked up. "What?" Evelyn didn't answer right away. She was staring at a single file, hands trembling slightly. Marcus stepped closer. "What is it?" She swallowed. "This is it," she said. "The fire." Marcus felt his pulse spike. "You're sure?" Evelyn nodded slowly. "I've seen this before. Pieces of it, but not all together." She opened it. Inside, reports, insurance claims, witness statements. Marcus leaned in, reading over her shoulder. Then he saw it, a name, signed at the bottom of an authorization. Richard Hale. Marcus's jaw tightened. "He signed off on it," I said. Evelyn's voice dropped. "No," she whispered. "He ordered it." Silence, heavy, real. Marcus looked at her. "This is enough," he said. "This proves everything." Evelyn didn't move, didn't breathe. For a moment, Marcus thought she hadn't heard him. Then, she shook her head. "No," she said quietly. Marcus frowned. "What do you mean, no? This proves he was involved," she said. "But not why." Marcus stared at her. "What more do you need?" Evelyn finally looked at him, and there was something in her eyes now, something deeper. "He didn't just want the house," she said. "He wanted me gone." Marcus felt a chill run through him. "Why?" Evelyn hesitated. "Then, I was about to expose him," she said. Marcus blinked. "Expose him for what?" Evelyn didn't answer, not right away. Instead, she reached deeper into the box, pulled out another file, thicker, heavier. She handed it to Marcus. "Open it," she said. Marcus did. Inside, more documents, more names, more locations. But this time, the scale was different, bigger, connected. Marcus's breath caught. "This isn't just real estate." Evelyn shook her head slowly. No, she said. "It never was." Marcus looked back at her. "What is it?" Evelyn met his gaze, and for the first time, there was no hesitation, no fear, only truth. "It's everything," she said. Before Marcus could respond, a sound cut through the silence, soft, but unmistakable. Footsteps behind them. Marcus turned instantly, heart pounding. The beam of the flashlight swung toward the entrance. Darkness, but not empty. A shadow shifted, then a voice. Calm, cold. "I was wondering how long it would take." Marcus's grip tightened. Evelyn didn't move, didn't look away. Richard Hale stepped into the light. Not rushed, not angry, just certain. He glanced around the warehouse, then back at them. "You really should have walked away," he said. Marcus stepped slightly in front of Evelyn. Protective, instinct. "You should have left her alone," Marcus shot back. Richard's lips curved faintly. "Left her," he repeated. He shook his head. "You still don't understand." Marcus didn't respond, didn't need to, not anymore, because now, this wasn't just about truth, or proof, or survival. It was about something else entirely. Standing, holding the line, not walking away. Even now, even here, Richard took another step forward. "Give me the file," he said calmly. Marcus didn't move. Evelyn's voice came from behind him, soft, steady. "No." Richard's eyes flicked to her. For the first time, something in his expression changed. Not anger, not fear, recognition. "You always were stubborn," he said. Evelyn stepped forward beside Marcus now. "Not hiding anymore, not stubborn," she said quietly. just done being silent. The air tightened, like everything was holding its breath. Marcus could feel it. This moment, this edge. Whatever happened next, there was no going back. And for the first time, he wasn't afraid of that. The silence in the warehouse stretched thin, like glass about to crack. Richard Hale stood there, composed as ever, but something in the air had shifted. The balance had changed. He knew it. Marcus knew it. And Evelyn, she felt it more than anyone. "You think this changes anything?" Richard said calmly, his voice echoing softly off the steel beams above them. "You think a few old files are enough to take me down?" Marcus didn't answer. He didn't need to, because this wasn't about convincing Richard. It never had been. Evelyn stepped forward, the flashlight beam steady in her hand, cutting through the darkness until it landed squarely on Richard's face. "It's not just files," she said. Richard's eyes narrowed slightly. Evelyn continued. "It's records, transfers, shell companies, names tied to everything you buried." Her voice didn't rise, but it didn't shake either. "You didn't just try to erase me. You built your empire on people disappearing." For the first time, Richard didn't respond immediately. A flicker, small, but real. Marcus saw it, and so did Evelyn. "That's a dangerous accusation," Richard said finally. Evelyn gave a quiet, humorless breath. "Good," she said, "because it's true." Marcus stepped beside her, holding the file tighter in his hands. "You told me to walk away," he said, his voice low but firm. "Said I didn't know who she was." Richard's gaze shifted to him. "And now you think you do?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "I know enough," he said. "Enough to know you're the reason she said no one wanted her." A pause, heavy. Richard's expression hardened. "That was her choice," he said. "No," Evelyn replied softly. "It was your design." The words hung there, undeniable, final. Somewhere outside, a distant siren wailed faintly through the night. Marcus blinked, looked toward the warehouse entrance, then back at Evelyn. "You called someone?" he asked quietly. Evelyn didn't take her eyes off Richard. "Yes," she said. Richard's jaw tightened. "You think the police will help you?" he asked, almost amused. "Do you have any idea how many people already have copies?" Evelyn cut in. That stopped him, completely. "They're not just here," she continued. "They're already sent. If anything happens to us, they go public." The silence that followed was different. Not tense, not fragile, solid, like something had finally landed. Richard studied her, really studied her this time. And for the first time, he saw it, not the woman he had tried to erase, but the one who had survived. "You've changed," he said quietly. Evelyn didn't blink. "No," she said. "I just stopped being afraid." Another siren joined the first, closer now. Marcus felt something shift inside his chest, relief, but also something deeper, something quieter. Like a weight he didn't realize he'd been carrying, finally loosening. Richard looked toward the entrance again, then back at them. "You think this is over?" he said. Evelyn shook her head slightly. "No," she said. "I think it's finally starting." Marcus glanced at her. There it was again. That strength, not loud, not dramatic, just steady, the kind that didn't need permission to exist. Red and blue lights began to flicker faintly through the cracks of the warehouse door. Richard exhaled slowly. Then, for the first time, he stepped back, not running, not panicking, just retreating. Marcus watched him, watched the man who had once controlled everything, take one step away from it, then another, and another, until he disappeared into the shadows near the exit. Gone before the doors burst open, police voices filled the space moments later. Sharp, commanding, flashlights sweeping across the room. Hands where we can see them. Marcus raised his hands slowly. Evelyn did the same. The officers moved in quickly, scanning the warehouse, securing the area. "Are you all right?" one of them asked. Marcus nodded. Evelyn didn't speak. She just handed over the file. The days that followed moved fast, faster than Marcus expected. News spread, investigations opened, names surfaced, stories that had been buried for years began to unravel, and Richard Hale, the untouchable man, was no longer untouchable. Marcus watched it all from a distance, from a small apartment that still smelled faintly of takeout containers and detergent, from a life that hadn't changed overnight. At least, not on the surface, but something inside him had. Something quiet. Something steady. A week later, Evelyn found him, not at the cafe, not in the shadows, but at the place where it had always started, the community kitchen. He was standing over a steaming pot, stirring slowly, when he felt someone step beside him. He didn't look up right away. He didn't need to. "You came back," he said. Evelyn smiled softly, for the first time in a long time. "I wanted to," she replied. Marcus glanced at her, really looked this time. She wasn't hiding anymore. Not her face, not her presence, not herself. "Everything done?" he asked. Evelyn shook her head slightly. "No," she said. "But it's moving." Marcus nodded. That was enough, for now. They stood there in silence for a moment. The clatter of dishes, the low hum of voices, the smell of warm food filling the air. Normal, simple, real. Evelyn watched him as he served a plate to an older man waiting patiently at the counter. No hesitation, no expectation, just kindness, the same way he had shown her, the same way he had shown everyone. "You know," she said quietly, "I could have chosen anyone." Marcus paused, set the ladle down, looked at her. "But you didn't," he said. Evelyn shook her head. "No," she said. Then she met his eyes. "I chose the one person who stayed." Marcus didn't say anything, didn't need to, because for the first time, he understood. Not the whole story, not every detail, but enough. Enough to know why she had said those words that night, enough to know what they really meant, and enough to know they didn't apply anymore. Outside, the sun dipped lower, casting a warm golden light through the windows. Inside, Marcus's daughter laughed softly with another child, her voice bright and free. Marcus watched her for a moment, then looked back at Evelyn. And for the first time, the weight of everything that had happened didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt worth it. Because sometimes, the world doesn't change because someone powerful decides it should. Sometimes, it changes because someone ordinary refuses to walk away. Marcus didn't walk away that night in the warehouse. And later, he still stood in that same small kitchen, quietly serving meals like nothing had changed, even after everything had. This story reminds us that real strength isn't in big speeches or grand moments. It's in the quiet choice to stay when leaving would be easier. And sometimes, one steady act of courage is all it takes to expose the truth and change a life forever. So today, think about one moment where you're tempted to step back, to stay silent, or to walk away. Do what Marcus did. Stay, speak, or simply stand beside someone who needs it, even if no one else does. If this story meant something to you, comment 1 below. And tell me, have you ever stayed when everyone else left? There's another story coming, where one small decision leads to something no one saw coming.